Great inputs. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us.
We should have a break.
Members, the intention is to break for lunch at 12:30, and we'll now proceed with item 11, waterfront planning and implementation. And that's with David Rankin from Panuku Development Auckland, John Smith, and Brenna Waghorn, also from Panuku Development Auckland. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So blessed.
Members, this is supported by an attachment that we considered at a workshop on the 10th of March. It's attachment I, it's on page 261 of the electronic record. David, in your hands.
Yeah, given that we had a workshop, Mr. Chairman, I'm not proposing to say very much. I suppose just to pick up on a couple of themes that came out at the workshop and I guess have been reflected in some of the presentation and discussion this morning. The waterfront very much is an example of what you were talking about earlier, of the problem of success. The waterfront is, compared to 10 years ago, teeming with additional people, employees, visitors, residents. And obviously that's creating a lot of pressures in what's a fairly limited physical space. There are phenomenal exponential growth projections in all those numbers. So we have a job as a council family around how we are going to manage those and deal with a lot of the competing policy tensions and drivers that are inherent in a lot of different uses wanting to squeeze into the same space. The second point to make is that we're back talking about a refresh of the plan, but happily this is a part of the city where there has been a huge amount of implementation going on over quite a few years now, that we can all look at the immense amount that has been done down there since the planning really and different initiatives got underway, probably you'd say in the early to mid 2000s. So there's a lot that's happened. It's not as though we're doing yet another bit of planning and there hasn't been the doing. To some extent, the reason for the refresh in the planning is because a lot has now been implemented. We have this terrific growth. We've got new factors like the growth in cruise and light rail and other things. So how do we best fit that in a way that integrates with the rest of the city centre? We've flagged a lot of those issues here and noted that they'll be coming to you progressively, not just in strategy documents, but there are some significant issues here for the LTP because a lot of these are funding requirements effectively. And finally, Mr. Chairman, we're seeking today a decision on the next stage of cruise infrastructure to meet the phenomenal growth in the cruise industry, and we have reached a consensus across the family of a way forward there, subject obviously to it being acceptable to you as the elected councillors.
Thank you, David. Members, do you have questions at this time? I will get the motion on the table. I will move. Do I have a second? I second in the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Cashmore, and a question. You did move it. I seconded it as well, Councillor Cashmore. And there's just one slight amendment. David, can I just check my amendment there? I'm reading paragraph. The red reflects paragraph 38 accurately. It is the preferred option of the Auckland Council group. That's Auckland Council, ATEED and Panuku and the Ports of Auckland as outlined in paragraph 38? That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Councillor Cashmore.
You just asked my very question, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you. I'm very pleased that the dolphin or attached dolphin or inner dolphin has been preferred rather than what was a wharf extension. But can we be assured that in regard to providing this, there will be competitive price process.
Construction.
In other words, it will be open to competitive bidding
Councillor Lee, you're referring to the construction process?
to the provision of the dolphin, yes.
Yeah, so the procurement and construction process would follow the standard process for Auckland Council, and it would be competitive.
Thank you.
Member Namani.
Kia ora. So, comfortable in agreeing in principle, although I've got to say the Māori impact statement's a bit light. It doesn't give me a sense of where you've got to on the matter with mana whenua. What I'm reading is they really haven't had a conversation, you haven't had a conversation yet to kind of arrive at their preferred option. So, as I said, is that the sense, or can you explain to me where the conversation's got to and what's planned?
Through you, Mr Chair, so there's been a number of conversations with the mana whenua group that Panuku manages, and those conversations are related both to the waterfront planning process and to the intended cruise infrastructure process. I'll talk to just the cruise infrastructure process. We have engaged with the governance group and the project working group on a number of occasions over the last year or so on the different options that we've been looking at for this process. The mana whenua governance group have been quite comfortable with the proposals that we've put forward and have been keen to engage further in the detailed design process, which we've undertaken to actually follow that with them along the path.
Okay.
Brenna might want to talk a little bit about the waterfront planning process.
Sure. We've had a number of conversations with mana whenua around the proposed targeted refresh of elements of the waterfront plan. One of the key successes to date, in fact, has been working together on some mana whenua goals for the waterfront. They felt that the vision and goals of the 2012 plan could be enhanced with specific goals identified by mana whenua, so they'll be part of the input in this refresh process. They've been taking through the process, and we've got a number of workshops set up.
Kapai, my question was specific to, were they aware that as I said, are they aware that this was the preferred process and they had a say about that? Because on that basis, that happy to support it.
But Mr Chair, if I could ask a supplementary to that?
No, I'm sorry, I can't take a supplementary from you, but if you would like a question, I will come to you.
Now?
I will come to you after Councillor Simpson and Councillor Watson.
It's for my question
The
to be
others.
deferred after.
Councillor Watson, you happy if I take the...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm just wondering that what might be a better option for you guys is to actually include all of that information in the Māori impact statement, make a hell of a lot of difference. At least people would be knowledgeable of what the process is and what's happening.
Yes.
And not just IMSB, but everybody around the table.
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Look, I think this is looking quite good. My question, I always had the question, Auckland didn't want us to go into the harbour, we had a burgeoning cruise industry, what we were going to do. My question is really around the recommendation number C. We know how the cruise industry is just growing exponentially. We do know that. How long do you think it's going to take to pay this off? It says over time. So have we got any projections around potentially how long it will take? And should we set a target? Councillor Walker's not here for me to say. But should we aim for it to be done within a set time?
John.
So through you, Mr Chair. So we've had a quick look at some calculations on this and some different options, and it really is a question of whether we apply a levy to all passengers or just those who are using that piece of infrastructure. So we've got a piece of work to go to actually define that, but like any piece of infrastructure that the council provides for a particular user group, we try to do that as transparently and as equitably as we can, and certainly with the operator and the user in mind.
So, Mr Chairman, through you, I mean, I think this is quite a key point. Are we trying to get this paid for quite quickly? What is our political direction here? Are we saying, listen, somebody else is paying, that's great, let's try and knock it off and, you know, quickly, in other words, try and get all cruise people to contribute and get it done fast, because that would pay back the debt to do this. It's a financial question, and we're not giving that direction, we just say over time. Are we actually saying that this is, we don't know yet, or I just don't think that resolution is clear enough.
John, just come back to you again. You have undertaken cost-benefit analysis on this. That's clear, that we didn't have that before, so thank you. And you are proposing this is tracked back through passenger levies, so, and that requires further work to resolve that question there.
Indeed.
But there is a clear intention that we front the capital, spend, and then we recoup. And there is a plan to recoup over time.
Correct.
So
But that's,
at this time, what can you say is the period of
yes.
recouping that cost? Is there any indication that you can give us at this time?
So we haven't come to a final landing on that, Mr Chair. We, the cost-benefit analysis that's been done is based on a 10-year net present value period, so taking it up to 2028, so assuming that the infrastructure can be built and operational by the end of next year. And that gives us a fairly good return on investment, and we would look to see how we could actually apply these levers over a similar period, and then come to a landing on exactly where it is, but there is some more work to go on that.
Okay.
So I'm just, sorry to labour this, but it's actually quite important because it's a financial, I almost think you need a resolution that we need to have a report to come back to confirm that that's what's going to happen, because it is a complete, we haven't got the data. I haven't seen the projection of how many cruise tourists are due in over that 10-year period of time, how quickly they could pay it off, and I think it's important.
Okay.
Can I just answer that? Sorry, I think it's just important to keep in mind the whole approval is subject to the technical work being done. So there is a cascade of work that has to follow all of this. So the technical work has to reaffirm that the inner dolphin is actually the answer. Technically, that will survive. The ports are the only ones with the mechanism to recover the cost, and they've agreed that that'll pass through. So there is a whole confirmation set that follows this, which will include all the data you want. I don't see any reason why that couldn't report back here, but that's why it's at the state it's at now.
I get you, thank you. All right.
And I think David will take that away, and in the Panuku update in 3 months or so, David, if you could just give us a brief update on that particular item. That is
It could be paid up pretty quickly, you know?
Yep.
We'd love that.
Yeah.
Councillor Watson.
No, it was the same question, and I agree with what Councillor Simpson said. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hulse.
Thank you. My question has been partially answered. I'm interested in that kind of cascade of decision-making, and whilst I'm doing my best to channel my inner dolphin, I'm quite interested in the pragmatic approach, which seems to be the theme of the day. I'm trying to understand what kind of has supremacy in this discussion and the way the decision's made. Is it the technical solution that will win out? Because the ships are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and a loose and rampaging ovation of the seas we do not want around our inner basin. And I must admit, some of the technical stuff that I've kind of done a quick little bit of reading of, the inner dolphin, may present some problems. And I guess, and this might seem like heresy, but I think it needs to be said, we need to make a decision on what we want and why. If this is for the security of the cruise industry and cruise ships in our city, regardless of where the ports move to, I guess there's a presumption that cruise will always be there. We need the best and safest outcome for them. So I think I'm agreeing with Councillor Simpson. I think this does need to come back to us, but with some fairly rigorous technical information alongside. No one wants to build into the harbour, and we've all seen how passionate the issues are around that, but on the other hand, no one wants to build something that is a bit half-cocked and half-thought through just because it's politically expedient. So I'm interested in it when it comes back to us.
Or lose the cruise industry.
I think just going to that, Mr Chairman, building something that's both usable and safe it has been at the foremost of this discussion. And at the end of the day, what councillors can take heart from is that the Board of Panuku, as the applicant for the resource consent, has to be satisfied it is proposing a safe design, otherwise it's got Health and Safety Act liabilities. Ports of Auckland that will be responsible for the operation of this, you can be certain that this is uppermost in their mind, so nobody's going to agree to anything that's not safe.
And on top of that, you've got the masters of the ships who have a vote, and the cruise lines themselves. So, and the harbour masters. So there is a wide array of people who will protect you from that risk. There's no way anybody's got a goal for a politically expedient option that could have those risks that you raise.
Thank you. Just in a question around this safety audit. It has. I understand it's passed a safety audit and another safety audit is required. Was the proposal which was recommended to us of a remote dolphin 75 metres out connected by a walkway or not, was that recommended with the support of Ports of Auckland at that time? Did that pass a safety audit when it was recommended? That is, when all the parties signed up to that. Was there a safety audit undertaken of the remote dolphin before it was recommended?
You mean the 75 metre one? There was a safety audit and it concluded that its conclusion was that a gangway was needed, and that in the event that discussion never got pursued further because we came up with this option. But what we are doing is arranging, in any case, for a peer review of that study as well as the option that's in front of you today. So there'll be a peer review of both of them.
I guess I'm just a little bit concerned that we're actually embarking on a much more stringent safety audit on this option than we did on the former option. I don't recall ships captains from Ovation class vessels from around the world being asked to sign up to the remote option. But look, I'll probably just leave that there. I realise that we're in a rock and a hard place here and we're embarking on a search for that review. The E, as recommended by your office, David, it notes targeted refresh waterfront plan focusing on Wynyard Point and Central Wharves. Can I assume that under Central Wharves we capture, under paragraph 26 key projects, we're capturing waterfront ferry services, we're capturing cruise strategy, we're capturing port future study, of course we need to see that separately, Quay Street seawall and Quay Street, they are all captured under Central Wharves? Have I missed anything?
In addition to those identified projects, there are some projects that were captured in the previous Central Wharves project, which include the tourism hub for an area where those water-based tourism activities can actually congregate and be visible to the visiting public. And there's a super yacht industry which was flagged in there as one of the functional needs that we looked at the time in 2015. So that's part and parcel of what we're also looking at.
So when we're talking the geographical spread east-west of Central Wharves, we are thinking about Halsey Street as well?
Correct. There's an overlap between the waterfront plan refresh that concentrates on Wynyard Quarter and that which concentrates on Central Wharves and then runs into the Port Future study, and to the south runs into the Central City Master Plan refresh, which you just heard about. So many of those projects fit in all of those refresh plans.
So a good way to think about it, Mr Chairman, is if you go right to the westernmost point of the sky path, as it were, right through to and including the wharf area. Everything is included, either for a refresh or a look the first time.
Okay, and this is the focus point at the outset. Okay, Member Hanare.
David, just going back onto the Māori engagement. What about Mātāwaka? What about urban Māori? What about, for that matter, Pacific Island community? I mean, I know sometimes we sort of roll up into one engagement. You know, that's basically Auckland. But I represent Mātāwaka and basically urban Māori. I mean, what's in it for them? Has there been any engagement specifically? We talk about iwi, we talk about iwi engagement. What about Mātāwaka? What about urban Māori engagement? Because I know that there are literally hundreds of Māori organisations out there that may not be up to speed with what's going on.
There hasn't been any undertaken or planned in respect specifically of this piece of infrastructure for the ferry cruise industry, but more generally we are shaping up some more extensive engagement with a wide range of, if you like, stakeholder groups, probably for mid-year when there's a bit more of a draft proposal or options shaped. And that's when we would definitely be looking to target the sort of groups that you're talking about.
Cool. We might get back to you and or so we can have some dialogue about maybe how and who.
That would be very helpful. Yep.
Cool.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to support the recommendations. There is a reference there to the central wharves and the central wharf strategy. We looked at that 2 or 3 years ago. I, for one, was not happy at all with the direction, but I'm happy with progress since then. There's still some way to go, and I make the point, it's an obvious one, that we have one of the best ports in the world, especially for cruise, set in a magnificent harbour. And it's up to us to balance how we develop that port and how, bearing in mind that there is limited funding, given all the other infrastructure demands, for what could be construed as continued subsidisation of the cruise ship sector. We have done our bit and we need to do our bit, but we need to balance that cost with other demands. Therefore, I would urge that we maximise the use of the existing infrastructure bequeathed to us by our wise ancestors to extract the maximum value we can from the existing wharves without getting into unbalanced costs or unreasonable costs given the other demands on this council. So I look forward to work on that and look forward to assisting if I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, sorry I couldn't make the workshop. I was at another working group that day. I like some of the directions of the points there, but are there some short-term goals? Like, I've noticed there are more cars being parked near the Te Wero bridge towards the Maritime Museum now. I mean, is there a way to, in a short, medium term, removing cars or at least reducing? They seem to be, the pathways that were sort of open for the Rugby World Cup are slowly becoming smaller and smaller, and that, you know, you've got fantastic public spaces on either side. I just think that would be good to be part of it. And the other thing, it was mentioned during the workshop as written here, but what is the direction around the Wynyard Point moving towards more of a park rather than a building thing? Is that kind of the direction, or that will be seen during the study? The refresh.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So on the first question, as part of this integrated and but targeted refresh of the planning, we are looking at the Eastern Viaduct in the Te Wero Island area. in particular to look at the future of the Wynyard Crossing Bridge. But we have undertaken some changes in the past to improve pedestrian and cycling safety. And the next options, I guess, into the future are to look at how parking and other options can be rearranged. So there is some thinking going on for that. In terms of your second question, in the workshop we highlighted the planning for the Wynyard Point, which will look at the proposed park, the development sites, the use of the wharf and so on. In the workshop we had a discussion around the notion of a signature public building, which is something that was identified in the waterfront plan, and the idea of perhaps the, without a specific direction or demand identified by council, that the focus may well be on an iconic park as opposed to a building. So there's a whole lot of options. Different groups have different views, more or less park, more or less development sites and so on. So they're the kinds of options that we'll be bringing to you in the framework plan.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Stewart.
Oh, thank you. I'll just be brief. Just really interested in this morning, not everybody may know about this, but I see Auckland cruise ships might house City Rail Link workers. Could you just tell us a little bit about that and where you think they'd be berthed, and have you thought about that? It's just
speculation.
Apologies for not being able to address that. I'm not aware of that, that item at all. No.
Okay. Is it on the story?
Our peers up in Northland are asking the same questions, but we don't have any information on that. I think
it's John Dalzell. He's actually come out and he's there's a photo of him and he's suggested that could happen. I just
fronting the
look, we just don't have anything on it. Look, it's moved, it's seconded, and I just want to acknowledge the team for going a long way on this one. I'm talking specifically about resolving the dolphin issue. David, you're the head man there on that project, but John, I really take my hat off to you and the team examining options when a few messages were going back to you, no, that won't wash at all, a remote dolphin. And so I'm grateful. Roy Palmer has been involved as well from the Mayor's office. Mayor's not with us at the moment, he's with the Premier of China, but the Mayor's also been asking some rigorous questions around this. I think it would have been very dangerous and would be very dangerous for us to set a marker 75 metres beyond, that is north of Queen's Wharf. I view that as really nothing more than just another survey mark for possible future reclamation, and it compromises that open water space. We're here now subject to final safety audit, and that process will be led by the Harbour Master on behalf of ourselves and the Ports of Auckland. I am very hopeful that we will land that and it'll be affirmative and that we can proceed with the inner dolphin. But I just really want to say again, I think the team has done exemplary work under some pretty tough conditions. Lots of commercial players on your back, John, but we have at this stage landed this well, and I think Aucklanders will thank you for examining this more robustly than it was when it landed just pre the election. So that's a genuine appreciation from, I think, all of us and Aucklanders. And in terms of the refresh, Wynyard Point, Central Wharves, that is about a holistic waterfront. We did sort of compartmentalise it in the past, but there are some pressures that are in front of us, and being a ferry user, we all experience a part of the transport network every day. My part is the ferries, and waiting for 11 minutes for a ferry to berth is not okay. 7 minutes to travel the harbour, 11 minutes for the ferry to berth currently. Not every day, I admit, but at least 2 days in the week. That's my ferry, and there are others that are waiting because of the congestion in the ferry berths. That's there are lots of issues down there for us to resolve. So I thank you for embarking on this work and get a great vision on our waterfront that interfaces with our city centre master plan and the Key Street edge, and deliver these projects sooner than later. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Brenna. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Declare that carried.